Hey guys, it's Chris. So this is the Game of Thrones Episode 7 recap, The Gift. And I had to start off by saying this last week. What the fuck, Theon? You had one job. I had to say that shit 2 weeks in a row. So, episode 7, The Gift. We had an action-packed episode with a lot going on in a lot of places. So I'm going to try to make this short and sweet, but there was a lot going on, a lot of plots carried forward a little bit, so I was kind of digging this episode. This episode took place in a lot of areas. King's Landing, The Wall, Winterfell, Braavos, Dorne, as well as Marine. So we'll start at The Wall. We open up with Jon Snow getting to head out on his mission with a big-ass moth. And he's about to head out on a mission with Tormund Giantsbane to Hardhome, and he goes over to Maester Aemon and hands him command of the Night's Watch while he's gone. And of course Thorne makes him aware that he's not pleased with this mission and it goes against everything he believes in, and this is really setting up something coming big, I think, at the end of the season that I won't mention for you guys who hadn't read the books. But he essentially makes it known that, you know, this is not a very popular decision. He also goes up to Sam, which is his loyal friend up there, really the only loyal friend he has at the Wall that hasn't been killed yet. And Sam, of course, hands him the dragon glass, which he killed the White Walker with. And then, of course, we have the death of Maester Aemon. So this is the first natural death in the Game of Thrones history. I mean, in the last 5 seasons, nobody's ever died of natural causes. So he's dead, which is kind of a sad moment because they kind of dug him and his wisdom, and also being a Targaryen as well. So as Sam leads the procession, they set the pyre on fire, and of course Alistair Thorne kind of leans over and says, "You're losing all your friends, Tarly." And what this is really doing is setting up the confrontation that's coming, I think, and this is just my speculation, but I think this is coming in episode 9 or 10, the kind of the end of the season, between the Night's Watch, or at least the half of the Night's Watch that hate Jon Snow for this decision, and the other half, and Jon Snow in his camp. I didn't mention that in the last episode, I forgot. Stannis had mentioned that there's lots of dragon glass at Dragonstone. I know a lot of people are thinking, well, they need to go out and find a lot of dragon's glass, a lot of obsidian. They do know where some is, and that again is Stannis back in Dragonstone. Of course, that's very, very far south. It'd be smart if he'd send off a few riders to go bring back a shit ton of dragon glass because they know what's coming. But again, with the death of Maester Aemon and with the tension building up between Jon and Alistair Thorne, which has always kind of been there, but I mentioned before that I thought he had kind of started respecting Jon a little bit, but there's still that tension there because he made him First Ranger, he's on essentially the council. But again, this whole situation with the death of Maester Aemon and Jon leaving and Thorne making his displeasure known is just building up this tension between Thorne and his camp and Jon Snow and his camp, and that's going to be something I think is going to be a major thing going on in the last couple episodes, possibly episode 10. I won't reference the books here, but I think that may actually happen this season. Let's just say a confrontation between Jon and his camp, who understand what he's trying to do, and the other men of the Night's Watch who now kind of hate him because of what he's trying to do with the wildling. And then we go to Winterfell. So we have Sansa being abused by Ramsey. Obviously the scene from the last episode, the Sansa rape, caused a major shitstorm on the internet. But now we see that Sansa is essentially held captive in her own chambers until he comes in and abuses her at night. And she saw her get up when Theon walked in, and she had all these bruises on her arms. So she is essentially being abused by Ramsey. So now he's even more hated. But on top of that, Sansa kind of finally reconnected with Theon, and Theon actually seemed to listen and start to listen, and you started seeing Theon emerge a little bit. Like I was saying before, this story arc right now is him going through this transformation from Theon to Reek and now kind of back to Theon, and you saw him kind of open up, kind of start becoming Theon again. You know, he got a little more ballsy. He promised her to go light the candle in the broken tower, so he goes to do that, climbs the broken tower, and there's fucking Ramsey sitting there at a desk like he's used that for his office or something. So apparently he's just doing some paperwork. What the fuck, Theon? You had one job. And he basically told everything that was happening. Going back to pussy mode, and he told Ramsey exactly what was happening with the candle in the window and the friends in the north. And then of course you see Ramsey take Sansa out in the yard and see the old lady that had mentioned that to her, the one that passed the message from Brienne at Wintertown. You saw her flayed, you saw her hanging there dead, and of course it just tore Sansa up again because that was kind of her her out. You know, in case she was in trouble, she knew she had friends that would see that candle in the broken tower, and so now that option's kind of gone for her. So I was sitting there watching this, and I was really starting to root for Theon, thinking, okay, good, he's back. Who the fuck sets up an office in the broken tower anyway? But one thing to add, I will say that I did like seeing Sansa finally kind of stand up a little bit to Ramsey when she was walking in the yard before he showed her the old lady dead. She said, what about, you know, Walda? She's pregnant. What if she has a son? He'd be the true heir since you're really a bastard. So I kind of liked that moment where she actually started standing up to him a little bit, although it really didn't matter in the end. And then it would just keep going south. So now we have Stannis, who is somewhere between the Wall and Winterfell marching, and he is being counseled not to go because all the troops are out there freezing and morale was down. A group of hired swords had apparently ridden off during the night. They had lost some horses. And he's like, no, we're going no matter what. We're either going to go fucking win or we're going to fucking die. So, I mean, he's just set on it. But then he starts questioning Melisandre and the vision they saw in the fire where she said she saw the battle in the snow. I was thinking, you know, that may be a different battle in the snow against the White Walkers. But then she mentioned that she specifically saw herself walking on the battlements of Winterfell and that type of thing. So he starts to question her and her vision. And of course she mentions that another sacrifice is needed, and with royal blood of course, and they have no royal blood other than Shireen, which is of course why she needed Shireen to go in the first place. She already knew all this, so he basically asked her, hey, we need to sacrifice your daughter. He says, fuck off, get out of my tent. So he's starting to question her. Right now, Stannis being the only one who actually gives a damn about the realm, but again, he wants his Iron Throne at the same time. So Stannis is in a little bit of trouble, I think, right now. And let's head back to the Wall for just a second. I forgot to mention that the scene with Sam protecting Gilly. I thought that was pretty neat, where these two Night's Watchmen are essentially about to rape Gilly, and of course Sam comes in and tries to defend her, even though he can't fight, but he's actually standing up to these guys. He's getting his ass whipped, but he stands back up like a man. He's about to go at it again, and Ghost comes in, who apparently stayed behind. And maybe that was on purpose. Maybe Jon Snow kind of feared for Sam while he was gone, because he kind of knows the resentment building towards him. Ghost chases off the two bastards. I thought it would have been great if he went ahead and killed him right there, but that's just me. It's always cool to see a dire wolf chew into somebody's neck. Sam gets laid. I'm so happy for Sam. He gets laid. He was like, oh my. So then let's jump all the way south to Dorne. So we're in Dorne, and Jaime's there in some kind of elaborate prison cell, where Bran is down in the dungeon cells right across from the Sand Snakes, which I kind of thought was odd. I mean, they're these badass Sand Snakes, and now they're just sitting in prison somewhere. And I know there's a bigger master plan there that I won't really get into here. I said this last week, I thought there was a reason they showed that little cut to his arm during the short shitty fight scene, so we questioned whether he was poisoned or not. As soon as Tyrion started saying, how is your arm, I knew he was poisoned, so that kind of confirmed it for me. And then of course it did kick in, and she shows her body off a little bit to him, and Bran says, yes, you're the prettiest woman I've ever seen, in exchange for the antidote. It was kind of odd. I'm not sure why she would want to save Bran. So she actually does save him, apparently. At least Bran's good to go for now, as far as we know. So then back in Jaime's cell, they had Marcella brought in, and he tries to say, look, we got to get out of here, and she doesn't understand the whole scheme of things. She doesn't even obviously know that Jaime's her actual father. He couldn't quite get through to her that, hey, you're in real danger here. And I thought, at least in this show, he would actually admit to her privately that he was her father. And then we go back to King's Landing. So Littlefinger's now arrived due to Cersei summoning him, where he plays the game and plays both sides of the fence. And he's in his brothel, which is now torn to shreds with 7 pointed stars painted all over the wall. So apparently the Faith Militant are also taggers. So he meets with the Queen of Thorns, and he offers her the same information that he offered Cersei. So what that means is he obviously knows the inside information on Cersei. So they're still willing to deal because she had already approached the High Sparrow. So she obviously gets this valuable information. And this leads to a great moment for me. Cersei goes to see Marjorie in her prison cell, and it pretends that she gives a damn how Marjorie's doing. And Marjorie tells her how she really feels, calls her a bitch, tells her to get the fuck out of her cell. Cersei comes back out, meets the High Sparrow, who goes into a diatribe about who built the original temple they were in. She had no idea. Then of course we see him bring out Lancel, which was the information that Littlefinger offered the Queen of Thorns. Lancel, of course, is now converted to a faith militant, but he used to sleep with Cersei on the side, so therefore that's adultery, and now she's going to stand accused of that. She then gets her moment and gets thrown into a dungeon cell right beside Marjorie somewhere. What's great about this is that she's the one who essentially brought back the faith militant and militarized them, and now it's turning on her. And the ironic part is just before this, we had this kind of soft moment with Cersei and Tommen. You actually started kind of feeling a little bit for her because she actually does love her children and she would do anything to protect them, and that's what she thinks she's doing with this whole plot to bring down the Martells. So fuck her, it's about time. So then we go over to Meereen, where we have Jorah and Tyrion, who were auctioned off by the slavers and bought by a slave master to take them to the fighting pits, which Dany has now reopened. She had already said that, yeah, we'll reopen the fighting pits, but only free men can fight there, but yet they're clearly slaves, so I'm not sure how that works when you have slave masters bringing out slaves to fight. I'm not sure if she knows or how that works or is aware of the situation. This was some pretty good action. You had some guys fighting, and then Jorah peeks out and sees Dany, the love of his life, although he's Captain Friendzone, he's never getting there. But now he's desperate, he's got grayscale, and he goes out and essentially wipes out all the fighters only to impress her, and then takes off his helmet and reveals himself to Dany, and Dany's like, get him out of my sight. And then he's like, I have a gift for you, Khaleesi, please listen. And then Tyrion walks out and finally meets Dany. So I was so happy they finally got to see each other. And she says, who are you? And Tyrion says, I am the gift. My name is Tyrion Lannister. And then so that's going to lead to an actual dialogue again between Dany, Tyrion, and Jorah. And I've said this in a few videos now that I believe that they will end up as Dany's small counsel. I don't know about Jorah now that he's got grayscale, or if he'll ever get back in her good graces, we'll see. I thought that was great, and I also thought the scene where they actually got auctioned off before they got there was great, when Tyrion says, I'm a great fighter too, and then he actually whips that dude's ass with his chain. That was awesome. Love some Tyrion, and I'm so glad that he finally got to meet Dany. So we're finally starting to see some of these things come together that we've been working towards this whole season. This season has not had a lot of action in the sense of Game of Thrones action where there's battles and death and that type of thing. But it's just built up and built up and built up with all these storylines, and we're finally starting to see some of that pay off a little bit. And now we just have 3 episodes left, so it's going to really, I think, get action-packed in the next 3. Overall, I thought it was actually a pretty good episode. They packed a lot of stuff in there in a lot of different places and advanced a lot of different storylines. I was digging this episode. So those were my top takeaways. Leave me a comment below, let me know what your top takeaways were. And again, I appreciate all your support. Don't forget to like and subscribe. So click here for my last video on the episode 6 review, and click here for the video I released last night, which was just a spur of the moment discussion with my cousin Chad from the Our House channel, where we just kind of discussed season 5 and what we thought may happen from this episode up to episode 10. Be sure to check that out. Again, thanks for all the likes, shares, and new subscribers. Be sure to subscribe to get everything. Thanks again for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. So yeah, if you like these videos, subscribe. It only takes a second. Just click the little, right there.